to the hairdressers last week and I was like, can you cut me a fringe? And she's like, you've got curly hair. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but the heat up here is burning my massive forehead. So could you cut me a fringe? So I got some protection. And she's like, you know, this probably isn't going to hold. And I'm like, just cut the fringe, do it. And she did it. It's the first time I've ever been to a hairdresser where she put no product in whatsoever. I thanked her, I paid, I opened the door, and as I hit the humidity, my fringes were...
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Welcome back, my little fussy cutters. Today on the Fussy Cutters Club podcast, I have the immense pleasure of talking to Tabitha Smith from the Quilted Summit. Now, Tabitha runs a quilting retreat in Floribama. I don't know whether that's the right way of saying it. It's on the border between Florida and Alabama. And quite frankly, if you haven't already seen her venue that she hosts these things at, go check it out. It is one of the cutest little buildings I've seen in a long time, and just everything I imagine living in southern US would be like. We talked a lot about fabric and our journeys and what's brought us here. It's really funny because where I live in Australia, Queensland, we often refer to it as the Florida of Australia. And so we were able to connect and share anecdotes of mosquitoes and crocodiles and alligators and things that go bump in the night, as well as our love of creating. And Tabitha's a passionate teacher. She has the immense pleasure of working with her daughter, which is a luxury that most of us can appreciate and envy. And so it was really great to sit down and talk with her. I hope you love it. And I hope you'll sign up for the Quilted Summit and because it's free, and come and listen to us all and learn from some really amazing teachers, and that would be fabulous. So without further ado, here is Tabitha Smith. Hi, Tabitha. Welcome to the Fussy Cutters Club podcast. How are you?
I am doing great.
Now, for those of the audience that don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of an intro? Because I have a special relationship with you, but can you tell others about what it is that you do?
Well, I have a few hats, going around. I have, I'm the part owner of Camellia Palms Retreat Center in Florella, Alabama, and we host retreats all year round. And then I also have an online community called Quilting Queens. We started that in August, I believe. And then I also have a small Etsy shop, and I sell mostly quilting stickers and printables, but I have a little bit of fabric on there. And then I'm the host of our upcoming Quilted Summit, which is coming up in February.
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of online stalking, and your quilt retreat is like the perfect dream American home. Like is it Gothic architecture, Victorian? Like
it's closer to Victorian. It was built in the late 1800s. It's a Queen Anne style.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. And on a personal note, the pink doors are just the icing on the cake. So you have this amazing retreat space, and you do quilting retreats, creative retreats, women's retreats. What made you get into the quilting retreat space, or the retreat in general?
We started it almost 6 years ago. We bought the property and started the retreat center, but I had wanted to do it for a decade before that. It was just something I really, like a dream, like it's just one of those things that sparks in you and you're like, man, I really want to do that. And I had been thinking about it for 10 long years. And finally, in the end of 2018, we didn't actually start until 2019, but my oldest daughter had gotten out of college. She was changing, jobs and stuff. And I was like, hey, it's a good time for you. It's a good time for me. I'm not raising kids anymore. I'm working, but I wasn't working outside the home, but doing a lot of volunteer and stuff with my guild. This is a great time. Do you want to go into a partnership with this?
Yeah.
So she said yes. And so we started hunting down the property, and Settled on that one and opened up in April of 2019.
Wow. So just in time for the pandemic. Good
Indeed.
time. Yeah. But retreats are one of those things that have bounced back, I think, really fast from post-pandemic world.
Yeah, and especially where we located it. We were in southern Alabama. It was not near as restrictive there as where it was where I was living, which was in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
So I was living 3,000 miles away. And Taylor had moved there to run it. But Washington was closed for a lot longer, and we were fortunate to be able to open up about 2 months after the initial close down.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so do you find that people are more appreciative of retreats now post-COVID than they were before, or do you think it's still got that same magic?
I think they are definitely more appreciative. They really felt the emptiness, the vacuum when they couldn't get together with their friends. Yeah. And, now they're really happy. And in fact, we've been seeing retreat centers pop up all over the United States in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And so do you do the full, do you provide accommodation and meals and the retreat, or do you bus people in from a local place?
For most, probably 90% of our groups are what we call private groups. It's groups of friends or a guild or something like that. And they book the space. We provide all the accommodations, everything they need, like design walls, irons, cutting tables, mats, all of that, everything but the food. We do have a full kitchen, and we have restaurants in the area. A lot of times they'll just all bring their crock pots and casseroles and have at it. But a few times a year we have what we call open retreats. So those are designed for the individual who doesn't have a group.
Yep.
And when we do those, I have a friend who comes over and hosts and does all the cooking.
Wow.
Because it's not going to be me.
I would be exactly the same. I'd be like, here is DoorDash, knock yourself out. So when they come for what's the average duration of a quilt retreat?
The average is 4 days, 3 nights, but some of them come for a week.
Wow. And so they've got, as you said, for the private groups, they've got complete reign of the property. What's the size of the grounds? Do you have?
It's about an acre.
Okay, so they've got heaps of space to walk and.
Oh yeah, and then across the street is our lake, our beautiful lake with walking paths. It's literally across the one little back road behind that property.
Wow.
So they have a lake view from their sewing area.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so a great opportunity for quilt photos.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Either off the back deck or the upper balcony. A lot of times people will take pictures in front of our pink doors.
Yeah, because they're amazing. And so you've got the retreat center going on. What makes you then decide to start the Quilted Summit?
So funny story. Back in September, I decided to go to Elizabeth Chappell's Quilters Candy Retreat in Utah.
Yep.
It was for all quilters. It was about sustainability and stuff. And so I hollered at my girls and I was like, "Hey, you want to go to Utah with me?" So we packed the 3 of us and our 2 dogs in the car and drove from Florida across the United States to Utah, stopping in Colorado to pick up my younger sister, and kept going. And so Taylor and I went to the retreat center. Katie and Tammy, my sister and my younger daughter, hung out at the Airbnb with the pups. We had a great time. But while we're in the car for 3 days driving across the country, we brainstorm and we feed off of each other. And we're just like, "Oh, I got a really great, terrible idea. You want to hear it?" And so that's how we got to the Quilted Summit. It was on a 3-day car drive to Quilters Candy's retreat.
Wow, that's amazing. And so what was the goal with the Quilted Summit? What was your intention?
I'm very much about community. I really, that is my heart when it comes to quilters. I think that's one of the reasons I like the retreats. I went to a guild this morning. It's connecting quilters to other quilters. And the summit does that across the world. It's global, right? Like anybody can watch it. It's free. It's online. And so you can connect with other quilters and see things. Because who knows? I have friends who didn't know what fussy cutting was until I explained it to them. They clearly had not found you yet. Because you're amazing with the fussy cutting. And I love fussy cutting. But hoping to connect all these speakers, these 20 plus speakers, to a big audience that maybe their audiences haven't crossed paths yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really great idea of a way of leveraging different community aspects so that, because I find quilting is like a smorgasbord. If you go to the smorgasbord and you only stick to the things that you eat at home, like spaghetti and whatever, then you're going to miss out on the bounty that is the smorgasbord. But if you go there and you're willing and open to try something, you might find out that you actually really love mushrooms. You don't hate them, as you've believed.
Or you might put a bite of sushi in your mouth and be like, that is the most loathsome thing I've ever eaten. Get that out. Because that happened to me.
But yeah, so it is a really great way of taste testing a lot of different techniques, a lot of different styles of teachers. As you say, it is global, so it's teachers from all around the world. I am doing this year, well, next year's the upcoming one, and we'll be talking on fabric and how to pick fabric and my top tips for picking fabric. Spoiler alert, it's just buy whatever you love. That's,
I get it, but a lot of people really struggle with that.
Yeah, like it is.
I have friends who can't quilt unless they buy a pre-packaged kit because they cannot pick their own fabric.
Yep, and I completely get it, and I understand the trepidation that comes with picking fabric because no one wants to get it wrong. So
right, you spend all that money and time.
And I think there's a societal pressure that we've got to be perfect, especially on women. And so that perfectionism creeps into our crafts and the stuff that we do for fun. And so you're trying to give people the freedom to play and make mistakes. Like the sushi thing. You might never have known that you wouldn't like sushi had you not tried it. And now you know to avoid it for the rest of your life. But
yes, no more sushi.
If you don't use colors like mustard or baby poo brown or, those colors that you're not naturally drawn to, you might never find out that they go really well with a navy or they go really well with a nice green or an orange and so it's that experimentation and having fun. And so the Quilted Summit's going to give people permission to learn new techniques, meet new people, meet new teachers. There is a community aspect to it as well. You provide a community forum for them to connect. So through that, and then it's really about finding out what makes you tick as a quilter. So
exactly. We're going to have speakers that are going to be talking about, train cases, how to refurbish a train case with some of that beautiful Tula Pink fabric, right? Or, how to find balance in your quilting life. I haven't really announced any of the speakers, but I could definitely do that here.
No, I think what we should do is, so I am definitely speaking. That's the only one you're going to get. It's the only one you're going to get on this podcast. What I'm going to do is encourage you to go sign up to the wait list. The link will be in the show notes. I will be spamming the link out in our newsletters and on our socials. So there's no excuse not to join. And as you said, the summit is absolutely free. So you're getting 20 plus teachers for free. And it's not like it's 30 minutes a teacher. So it's not like a 5 minutes. No. And you are very good at articulating that it's not just about selling. So this is about giving value to the community and making sure that people are actually walking away learning something from it. So I'm really excited. I'm going to do it myself because I can't wait to learn from other people.
And I hope people will be inspired, right? Like inspired to try a new technique or a new project that they never thought. Maybe they'll be inspired to fussy cut because that is a whole fun world.
Yeah, I think inside everyone there's a little bit of fussy. So I'm really excited to share that technique. And spoiler alert, there's going to be a special little bonus for people who sign up for the Quilted Summit and come to do my session. So we'll have all of those details in the wait list and the information that goes out so you won't miss out. I guess your intention is that the summit will continue to go on and grow and get bigger and connect more people.
We would love to do more.
Yeah. And so is there a bucket list teacher that you would like to get for it?
Oh my gosh, there's a few that, I reached out to, never heard back. But, obviously Tula Pink would be amazing. Gudrun Erla.
Yep.
She's from Iceland, oh my gosh, there's so many. Mr. Domestic would be really cool. I think he does some interesting stuff. K Facet. I mean, I like to dream big.
Me too. And I think unless you dream big, you'll never know. And that's, I don't know whether they have it in America, but there's a saying in Australia that if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's very much how I've lived life, is politely asking and then saying thank you and being grateful. And so it's that thing of, I think you have to dream big. Nothing ever gets achieved because someone thinks, I'll just do a little bit. I'll just do this.
Yeah, or they don't want to talk to me, but you know what? I can be a real pest, so I'll be like, please talk to me.
Which is all you can do.
I talked to Karen from Just Get It Done Quilts, and she didn't have time this time, but she said keep her on the list for next time. So
yep, and she is really knowledgeable and really good, so she would be a good get too. So with the summit, so you do that, the summit. You've got an Etsy store. So what are you selling? Oh, so printables and stickers and fabric in the Etsy store.
Yeah, mostly it's stickers and printables. I do have some fabric, not a lot of fabric. A year and a half ago or so, my local quilt shop, one of them was closing out and retiring. So I went and I bought her inventory out, and then I convinced my friends to go with me and take 3 or 4 carloads in a Honda Pilot back to my house. And they thought that was the best thing ever. They're like, oh my God, it feels like we're robbing the place. They're like, our dream, we just get to take all these bolts of fabric out and put them in the car. So I have been doing, I have some of it online, not a lot, because mostly what I do is I create bundles and I take them to the retreat center as a pop-up shop for the retreaters.
Which is a great idea.
Yeah, then they can shop and they don't have to go out in the rain or whatever. And so that's worked out really well. My daughter, the artist, creates stickers for me. And so I have some cool quilting stickers and printables. I can't take credit for designing any of that because I'm not an artist and Canva makes me cry.
Yeah, I feel your pain. So I guess I'd say the big get for the retreat center would be if, say, someone like Chula Pink came and did a retreat there, or I mean, it's got a pink door.
I know that would be really cool. We do have one of our speakers who has booked for a retreat already.
Oh wow, so that's great.
That's great. She's coming from Texas, I think. But the retreat center is kind of like a separate. It's not necessarily tied to the summit. Like obviously, if people want to book, I'm not going to turn them away. And of course, I have you have your Society Gnome. I have Quilting Queens, and it's a small online community. And it's nice because not everybody can get out and go to a guild meeting, right? They live too rural. They have physical limitations. Maybe they can't drive or whatever anymore. And so it's really nice to have that. And I have a core group of people that show up and we just chat and sew. And, we have other little things in there, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
I find the same. I really look forward to the sit and sews with the society ladies because it's just to connect with people from around the world and then they're experiencing a different style of life to what we're experiencing. Because a lot of times they're in the Northern Hemisphere and so they're your seasons are reversed to ours or ours are reversed to yours. And so it's really interesting to see.
I mean, you wouldn't know it was winter here at the moment. It's 76 degrees with 100% humidity and it's hot. It feels hot. 3 days from now, it's going to be 50 degrees for our high and in the 30s for the low. So winter's coming back, but we've had a couple of days of summer this week. So our weather's all over the place.
I often joke that we live in the Florida of Australia. So
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, the other day, so we've had rain the last week, which has been absolutely glorious, but we've got the post-rain humidity. And as someone with curly hair, the minute I leave...
Yep. Yes, indeed. There's not enough gel in the world to tame it down on these kind of days. So this is just what you get.
I went to the
horrible.
I went to the hairdresser's last week and I was like, can you cut me a fringe? And she's like, you've got curly hair. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but the heat up here is burning my massive forehead. So could you cut me a fringe? So I got some protection. And she's like, this probably isn't going to hold. And I'm like, just cut the fringe, do it. And she did it. It's the first time I've ever been to a hairdresser where she put no product in whatsoever. I thanked her, I paid, I opened the door, and as I hit the humidity, my fringes were...
Mine was only under this much control because there was hair. I had to go somewhere and there's hairspray in it to hold it there.
She's like, I got home and it was like a poodle had a really bad haircut. And I get out of the car and my father, who, like, we have had a long history of him and I reacting to bad haircuts. I get out of the car and I look down and he's sitting on his veranda and he is just stifling a laugh. And I'm like, I knew this would be bad.
That sounds like my daughter and her dad, only it's the opposite. He'll come home with a haircut and she's like, you left like that? You left the hair on like that? How could you leave like that? Go back. I'm going to fix it.
He's shocking. Like, he's just, like, he loves me to pieces and we have a very, very good relationship. But we give each other heaps all the time. And he'll often laugh at whatever's going on my noggin. And now my retort is always, well, at least I've got hair. Because he used to have beautiful, thick, wavy, there's photos of him from the 70s with like shoulder length hair and it's just blowing in the wind with the light on it. And I think, wonder what it's like to go from having such a beautiful mane of hair to not.
Well, be careful not to give him too much grief because you don't want that to happen to you in about 20 years.
No, but there's so much. I'm one of those people that goes to the hairdressers and they're always like, oh, there's so much hair. You've got so much hair. And I'm like, it's because I eat my crusts. My nan always used to say, if you ate the crusts off your bread, your hair would be thick and curly. Oh, and I'm like, she also used to say, if you ate carrots, you could see in the dark. I'm not sure she's a professional health advice giver, but
I spoke to my daughter that the other day because she said she's had this carrot craving for a while now. She's eating a lot of carrots. So I'm like, has it improved your eyesight? And she's like, no.
Yeah, no. Nah.
Nope, it sure has not.
No. Carrots is a weird thing to be craving, though.
Isn't it, though? Like, what are you, like, low on vitamin A? What is the vitamin that your body is craving?
Yeah. Or is it the crunch? She said
she's been craving carrots like nobody's business.
See, I don't know what it's like to crave something healthy. That's just weird. So, back to quilting. So, Quilted Summit's coming up. Are you speaking at Quilted Summit?
I will be. Do I know what I'm speaking on yet? Not 100%. My daughter's asked me 3 times. I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out when it gets closer.
Well, it's close.
It's closer. And then she told me that day, she's like, oh my God, Mom, we're about to start releasing all this stuff. You have to figure out what you're going to speak on.
I'm finishing mine today. That's my goal for today.
Yeah.
Is to finish it.
I guess my goal this week is to figure out what I'm going to speak on and then record it, because it's like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm kind of a last minute kind of person.
Yeah, me too.
Drives her crazy.
So is there a technique that you love more than another? Like, are you an FPPer, traditional piecer, improv?
Ooh, I would say I love FPP.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And with the fussy cutting, I've been doing, I've got the tiny TVs going on. I got some ugly Christmas sweaters. I've got the Tall Tales book. And people are like, what are you doing with these? I'm like, I have no idea, but I have a little stack of TVs and I have a little stack of ugly Christmas sweaters. I have a stack of books. I don't know if they'll ever go in a quilt. I just like making them.
Yeah, I've got the TVs going on.
I have the TVs. I couldn't find them today. I know they're in my sewing room somewhere. I moved something around now. I don't know where I put them.
Yeah, when she released it, so Christy from Quiet Play did the tiny TVs.
Yes.
And when she was brainstorming what to do and she went, I'm going to do TVs. I was like, yes, I have the perfect stash for TVs.
I know. It's so cool.
But I still haven't put them into anything. So
nope. I even found the perfect backing. It was a fabric that had TVs on the back. And I was like, this is perfect. Now I just have to put the TVs together. So yeah. I like foundation paper piecing. I actually like applique, machine applique.
Okay. Yep.
I like a lot of modern and artsy and bright and fun. Baby poo brown is just not my color. And so I like really brights and fun fabrics, novelty fabrics. I don't do a lot of traditional quilts.
Yep.
But I also don't go all the way to improv either. I just sort of like start with a pattern as a suggestion and work off of it from there.
So patterns are like the speed limit, a suggestion.
Oh, indeed. It drives my husband crazy that I treat both of them like that. I showed him a quilt one day and he's like, did you ever think about like making that symmetrical? I'm like, no.
Asymmetrical is a genre. It's fine.
He doesn't. He's like, you have 2 eyes, 2 ears. Why is this all off? I'm like, it's fine. It's art.
I made the mistake once of going to my husband, you can pick the colors for this quilt. Oh, it was one of the hardest quilts I've ever made. So I'm like, not doing that again.
Yes, if I asked my husband to pick colors, we would be straight into the Civil War reproduction fabric.
Oh, yeah, no, mine went with baby blue. Because
when he goes to quilt shows with me, those are the ones he's drawn to, the grayed out, the browns, and I'm just like, that doesn't do anything for me. So then I have to ask, which do you prefer? The Kona Nocturne color of the year for 2025 or Pantone's Baby Poo Pantyhose Brown?
Mocha Madness.
Yes, baby, it's pantyhose. It's like pantyhose color.
When Nocturne was released, I was like, finally a color I can get behind.
My absolute favorite color.
It's been a while, and it's really close to the fabric that I use as my go-to background, or so I was very excited. But I gotta say, the Mocha Madness, in the right combination of colors, I actually think it's going to be an unsung hero. So, because I think if you paired it with really highly saturated pinks, oranges, I reckon you're going to be surprised that a lot of Kaif, Chula, Anna Maria Horner will actually really go well with that color because it is a neutral.
Subtle.
Yeah.
I know. I had a friend of mine was trying to sell a beige kit. It was all beiges. And I told her, I said, look, you're not marketing it right? You got just this kit. I said, just put signs up like, this will make the quilt your husband always wanted. Or I am the color that makes every other color look good. Because I'm not a color, I don't compete with anything else. That's how I feel about beige.
The first blue ribbon for a quilt I ever won had a mushroom brown background. And it was Anna Maria Horner's feathers pattern that she did. And all the feathers were highly saturated colors, all modern prints, all really lovely. And that color just made everything else sing. Really? And so I think people are giving them a hard time for Mocha Madness, but I reckon you're going to see that over the next 12 months, you are going to see it everywhere. And you're going to be like, that's a hard-working color that makes every other color. It's the wingman of fabric colors because it's going to make everything else look amazing.
Right. It won't compete with your hot pink. It's funny that you said the feathers because on my Facebook memories today, I kid you not, from 10 years ago, that pattern showed up because I made it as scrappy prints for my daughter. I made those feathers. Yeah. And somebody was like, oh, who's making that? Who made that? I was like, oh my God, I think the pattern was Anna Marie Horner. I was like, don't hold me to that because I may be wrong because it's been 10 years, but.
No, it is. And it's like, it was like the third quilt I ever made or something stupid like that. And it's all bias cut. It is traditionally pieced, but they're all oddie little pieces. And so, yeah, it hung for years in my parents' house. And when we moved up here, my mum didn't have room to display it. So I've got it back. And now it's just sitting in a cupboard in a treasure trove of quilts. But we were really amazed. And I was at the judging when the judge picked the quilts. And her thing was, she was so amazed that background color was a brown, and she was like, I've never seen, and that quilt won best use of color, first prize, custom quilting, and so yeah, it's one of those things where I've like never underestimate the power of brown.
Right. Well, and I also think that when people struggle with picking fabric colors and for a quilt, right? Like they start with just a pattern and they're trying to pick colors that aren't necessarily identical to the front of the picture on the pattern. what I tell them is as long as you pick a cohesive background, the rest of it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Right. So whether that's your mocha, whatever it is, mocha whip over there, or I did one in, bright macaroni and cheese yellow, the background. And it worked because it pulls all the other fabrics together.
Yep.
And I'm not generally a yellow person either, but this was perfect for all those other fabrics, whether they had yellow in them or not, didn't matter. Having that cohesive background fabric made the quilt. Yeah. And I think too many people who are struggling to pick colors is they forget that the background, even though it's just the background, pulls it all together.
Yep. And I'm a big advocate of telling people to experiment with their background colors because, for example, this color, like an olive khaki green color, which at the time I was like, that's my husband's favorite color, right? And I'm like, that's not even a color, but okay. You love the color that makes you invisible. All right.
See, that's how I feel about the beige.
And so I made a quilt with all Anna Maria Horner fabrics and used olive green as the background. And that's one of my favorite quilts because that green makes everything else just sing. And so it's a really interesting, that's why I love quilting. It's the way that the colors interact. And when you cut up intricate fabrics, even if you don't fussy cut and you just cut where the measurements fall, seeing those things cut and rearranged, and it brings different things out of the prints, and a good fabric designer understands proper spacing and repeat, and so you get all of that stuff in the jumble, and it is really a gift to be able to play with those things. But yeah, I think mocha, I would pick nocturne
nocturne
over mocha, but I actually really like both of them. So
well, I think what you were saying about even if you don't fussy cut it, like one of the other things I really love to do is one block wonders.
Yeah.
And I've got this one, it was like my second one I ever did. And I call it Margarita Sunset because I was like, if you've had too many margaritas, you're going to see the spinning flamingos. Because, I didn't fussy cut it. And so we got little flamingo legs going in a circle. And wherever they landed in the triangle, that's where they went, right?
Yep.
So some of them have legs, some of them have heads, And I didn't have to fussy cut them, but it just worked so well. It was just such a fun thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a Robert Kaufman.
Yeah. Yeah. I think flamingos are underrated. John from Art East Quilting Co. and I have had a long discussion about motifs in fabric that we love: flamingos, bananas, lobsters, like all weird stuff. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where you can have so much fun.
If you have flamingos on a fabric, the people in Florida buy it. Bar none. They are crazy for flamingos down here. Like that is their thing.
I love Florida. So this is speaking of animals, but because you're in Florida at the moment, do you get the questions all the time that we get here in Queensland where, do you have alligators in your backyard? Do you see them all the time?
We get that. I don't get that question here where I live, but across the state line, because the retreat house is technically in Alabama. It's on the Alabama-Florida state line, but it's on the Alabama of the lake. There's a lake. State line runs through the lake. And so there's signs that say, watch for snakes and alligators, right? And invariably somebody will be like, oh, you get alligators here? I'm like, no, they stay on the Florida side of the lake. They'll come across the state line over here. And, it's just a funny joke with us, but people believe us. The truth is the Alabama side is where everybody swims and jet skis and everything. So it's very busy, and gators are more shy than that, right?
Yeah.
So they really do stay mostly on the Florida side where it's swampier and less active. But we just tell them, no, we keep them on the Florida side of that lake.
Yeah. No, it's been the one thing since we moved up here that so many people ask us about is, do you have crocodiles and do you see them? Yeah, well, I've been posting some photos of big snakes we've had.
I saw it.
Just recently. I've been running a whiteboard with a list of places that I would like us to move to. And So far it's Iceland, Ireland, Norfolk Island, Scotland, New Zealand. None of them have snakes.
They don't have snakes. The Western United States, west of the Cascade Mountains, so Western Washington, the Pacific coastline of Washington, Oregon, no poisonous snakes.
Yeah, but snakes full stop. I don't want to see any.
It's just like a little tiny. The only thing you'll ever see there is a tiny little garter snake. They're tiny.
Yeah. Oh, they're the red and white ones? The red and white with black?
No, they're more of like a muddy brown-green.
Okay. But yeah, so
since I moved back to Florida, I have at my house seen copperhead, pygmy rattlesnake, water moccasins, and then you see the non-poisonous ones, which they get to live, but the poisonous ones, they do not get to stay here.
Yeah, so we have a rule. So when we first got here, the property had been not lived in for about 6 months. And so the wildlife just kind of felt like it owned the place now. And so it took us a while.
Squatters.
Yeah, it took us a while to kind of make enough noise and clean up the gardens and all that sort of stuff to push them back a little bit. But our rule is if it's a tree snake, basically if it's non-venomous, we won't move it on, except for the carpet pythons because they get up to 4.5, 5 meters long. And so they would take the dog. And so that's the rule. We get a professional in to move them, and we've moved 2 in the last fortnight.
Well, I don't think any of the snakes here get that big. About 4 feet is about the biggest that we get around here. Yeah.
So when we first moved in, we bought our chooks. Everyone laughed at us because we were the Southerners who started a chook. Like we got a chook run, chicken run.
Chickens.
We call them chooks, but they're chickens. And so we paid like some stupid amount of money to get a snake-proof coop for them because we were like, I do not want to wake up to listening to a chicken being strangled by a snake. And 2 days after we put them in, we walked out and there was a 3.5 meter carpet python just up the side of the coop looking to get in. He did not care about us at all. He just wanted those chickens. And so we were like, that was money well spent. Look at our chickens in there strutting around. They don't care. But we pay to get those guys moved on. Wow. So, but we get
There's a big snake.
It is a big, but it's not as big as you see some of those snakes in Southeast Asia. And they're massive, like they eat people, and
and they have pythons and stuff down in South Florida, because they have been turned out. They weren't native.
No, and they have a competition or something to catch the most or the biggest or
to go out there and snake wrangle, which you'll never catch me doing.
No, I run.
I will if I come across a snake here on the property that is non-venomous. I usually just grab a garden rake and scoop him up and flick him back over the fence, right? Just so that the dogs don't spend all day barking at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to relocate box turtles too.
Yeah, we get turtles as well. And
they drive my dog crazy.
And they move faster than I realized. I'm like, in my head, I imagine turtles were like shelled sloths where they just kind of, but those suckers will move. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's been really funny because we live sort of like you guys. We've got a river at the back of the property, and then across the road from our place is a big man-made lake area. And so the turtles cross the road to get from the river which is quite a bit of a hike. And you see people stopping their car and getting out and moving the turtles. And like within the first month of being here, we'd all moved a turtle each. And I'm like, if you told me 6 months ago that I would be risking my life moving a turtle, I'd be like, not a chance. But yeah, so they turn up everywhere. So that's really funny too, because you'll find turtles in the most unexpected places. Like, how do they get stuck there? So we get turtles, we get peacocks, which has been really interesting because I didn't realize that peacocks do massive number 2 poops. And so that's horrible. And they make the weirdest noise, like a strangled cat goose honking kind of thing. But they've just all had babies, so now we're getting the little peacocks coming. Super cute. They're all getting the little plume at the top. It's really cute. So we get those. We feed the wallabies here, so we get the rock wallabies, which are little kangaroos, and then we're getting the bigger wallabies are now starting to come and lay in the yard again. We get a whole heap of different birds and parrots, and my mum's become obsessed with butterflies, so we're planning heaps of stuff to support all the different ranges of butterflies that are here.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And really, none of us knew anything about anything when we first got here, and now we butterfly spot, like, oh, that's a that, and that's a that, and that's a. And so it's been really good, and I find we were only talking about it yesterday, because one of the tips I tell people with choosing fabric is go to your wardrobe and have a look at what the predominant color is in your wardrobe, right?
Purple.
Because when you're left alone to choose whatever you can wear, you tend to choose the colors that you like, right? And so that's often a good place to start, is have a look. What's the color of your wardrobe? What's the color? If you're able to buy any bedding that you want, what colors do you generate? Like go towards, gravitate. And so I said to Grant, it's really funny, when we lived in Canberra, blue, everything blue, from navy all the way to aqua, teal, blue. But since we've moved here, I notice it's more deep greens, light green, like a green is popping up. And I think it's because of the landscape, because we're living in greener pastures, so to speak.
Yeah. I also tell people, like, when you're trying to combine colors, go to nature and look. You'll see flowers, that combine really well, or butterflies, or, anything like that. I was like, go look at nature and combine, see how it's combined, because nobody looks at it and goes, oh, that is the world's ugliest flower. Right? Everybody looks at the flower and is like, oh, that's so beautiful. And even beige can be pretty on a sloth.
But that's my thing too. I always go, if you've got an hour to spare and you want to do a quick color theory lesson, just watch a David Attenborough documentary. Like, go watch that. Even because our kid was into Top Gear cars when he was little, because Top Gear is filmed in a documentary cinematic style, you can even watch Top Gear and see the countryside and what goes on, where they're going through Italy or the fields, and so, yeah, I agree. Nature is such a good palette to choose from. And even gardens, like you'll see when you go to like proper gardens.
Like a botanical garden.
Yeah, what they're planting in amongst each other, and companion plants, what the colors of those companion plants are.
Right. And you'll see they come straight off the color wheel.
Yep. And
the complementary colors and stuff when they do companion planting.
The other one I like to tell people is when you're in the supermarket, what packaging are you drawn to in the supermarket? And so what colors are in there? The only thing with the supermarket is that it's a very limited palette, because advertising has a different goal with colors than, say, quilting. And so they're pushing you.
A lot of purple.
No, or orange. You don't see a lot of orange either.
You see a lot of red, a lot of yellow, a lot of bright blue.
Yeah, and so when you're in there, or the other one I like is, we call them a bottle shop, a liquor store. If you're in there looking at all the wine labels and the spirit labels and stuff like that, what are the color combinations that you're drawn to when looking through there? I don't drink, but I do like going to buy my father wine because I get to look at all the labels.
There you go. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one, but that's a good idea too. Because I hadn't considered that. But that's, I usually look out like outside nature, because living in Florida, it's very green around. Yeah. There's lots of tropical and vibrant plants, and so that's kind of cool. When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, it was also very green, but of a totally different plant variety, right?
Yep.
And in Texas, it was semi-arid, so there was a lot of brown.
Yep. We found when we were in Florida, in Miami, even an urban environment where you see different buildings together, or if someone's got their laundry hanging on their apartment balcony, because essentially concrete is a neutral, how the concrete makes everything else look in comparison against it. And so when you see like greenery in a city environment, what that green does and how it pops, and even the browns of the trunks against the concrete grey.
You can go to a beach town because then, like, I don't know about there, but here, when you go to a beach town, whether that's in the Northeast or the Southeast or anywhere, all the little houses are painted in pastels.
Yeah. It's the Melbourne has the little bathhouse sheds, and they're painted in like a rainbow of different colours. But yeah, it's that thing. I think if you're just more observant in life and you pay attention, and I dare I say it without sounding all woo-woo hippy-dippy, but if you're present in life, like even when you're just driving between appointments and you're paying attention to what's going on around you and looking for things that you love or things that you have a reaction to, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, like the sushi thing. It's all learning. It's all going towards that foundation of understanding colour and what you love. Because at the end of the day, you really just got to make what you love. Like it's not.
Well, if you make a quilt with the Band-Aid legs pantyhose color, definitely send me a picture because I just can't quite see myself doing it, but
see this stack here, which I've got. It's
very colorful.
It's Lizzie House's love letter line that's coming out in January, February, I think.
Okay.
This goes really well with Mocha Madness.
I don't doubt that they would go really well. It's trying to picture it in my head because that is never a color I'm ever just going to pick up and be like, oh, yes, I can't wait to make something like this.
Where have you been all my life?
Right.
I mean, Lizzie was one of the designers that I think does a really good brown. Heather Ross does a really good brown as well. Anna Maria Horner does a good brown.
The last time I used a brown significantly in a quilt, I was making Bonnie Hunter's pumpkin patch a number of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason I picked brown for my backgrounds for the pumpkin was because the other color she chose was even worse to me, and that was gray. Gray's even worse than brown, and grayish is the worst of all. And so because she had used gray, I was like, well, I can't use gray, so I guess I'll use brown. And I didn't even have enough browns in my stash, and I have a big stash, to finish this quilt. I had to go to all my friends and be like, oh, my God, could you please, do you have any brown I can have? Because I have no browns, and I was trying to make it scrappy. And I love the quilt. You know, if I redid it, I might do it and make them apples instead of pumpkins because then I could use red and green.
Yeah,
and it'd be very, and goldens, and it'd be very bright and happy because this is kind of on the muted side for me. But I was just like, I didn't even have enough browns to do this quilt.
But it's interesting, right? Because grey used to be my go-to for like a really slate grey. Riley Blake have a really good colour called Smoke, and it's a nice dark grey colour with a bit of a blue base to it. But that used to be my go-to when we lived somewhere where we got like a winter, like a proper winter. But now I can't even look at greys in my collection and get excited about them. I'm like, you guys your time has been.
Your time has been, yeah. And then maybe part of the problem was when grey got really, really popular.
Oh, yeah.
In the late 2015 to 2020 kind of thing, right? Everybody's putting it on their walls. I lived in the Pacific Northwest, and so half of the year, the sky was also that color all the time. And I was like, I cannot imagine putting gray on my walls or gray in my quilts because it's gray outside all the time.
Yep. It was one of the things that I was really excited about when we moved to work from home is that it was so dark in the office buildings we worked in that I got bright. Like I can't function without a high level of light. And so
exactly. I understand.
But now I wonder whether my quilts are moving more towards those tropical colours and the bright, because the sky is just different here, the light is different here, and we've got more of that being back on the coast. Like we are essentially just Florida of Australia. Like it's the same thing, same sort of
hot, muggy, and buggy.
Yeah, essentially. I've just been scratching a mosquito bite on my leg. Yeah.
I tell people, they're like, what's it like there? I was like, it's hot, it's muggy, and it's buggy. That's what it's like.
My poor husband.
I don't have to shovel snow, so it's fine. but I also, have to put on the bug spray to go for a walk.
We joke, I haven't turned an air conditioner off in 2 years. I'm like, it's just...
I know, it's December. My air conditioner is running today, right? Because it's hot and muggy. Now, 2 days from now, I will turn the air conditioner off because our highs will only be in the 50s for a few days. Yep. It's just back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't know what it's doing.
When we first moved here, it got to the point where we actually had to have like a don't say it anymore conversation. But every time my father would come into the studio, he'd be like, it's freezing in here. Why is it so cold in here? And I'm like, because I'm sweating through everything and I have to stand next to that iron and the iron is hot.
It's like standing in the kitchen with the oven on.
I don't get it.
Retreat center, it is, it was built in the 1800s. It's got 2 stories and it's, I think, 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. And we have 3 air conditioning units. We've got one for downstairs, one for upstairs, and a separate mini split for the sewing room because the sewing room faces west and it's got this giant bank of bay windows. So the light is great for sewing, but it also gets darn hot down there.
Yeah.
So we have 3 air conditioners because,
it's worth it. I would take hot with the light over no light and freezing because the light just makes everything so much nicer.
Yeah. So nice that we have all those big windows on the sewing room so that everybody can see. Although usually along about July in the afternoons when it's the hottest part, they're closing all the curtains because there's it's too hot out there.
Yeah. Well, we've had a fabulous chat. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're
Again,
welcome.
Everybody needs to check out the Quilted Summit. And if you're fortunate enough to live in America, go to the retreat, even if it's just to see those beautiful candy pink doors and the Queen Anne. That house is amazing. It's a thing of dreams.
It is really, they don't build them like that anymore. It's one of only 2 left. It's the only one on the lake still like that. And there's another one, a couple of miles away that's not on the lake that is similar, built about the same time frame. And most of our downtown buildings in Florida. Okay,
Fussy Cutters, I confess to you, Tabitha and I talked, which I'm sure you'll find surprising. But we're going to cut the episode there because we did go on and talk about lots of random stuff like undertakers and puppies and stories of big snakes. And so it could go on forever and your time is precious. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learnt a little bit of something. I hope you'll come and join us at the Quilted Summit. You can get all the details in the link below. I hope you will find Tabitha and say hello to her. And I just hope you loved our first episode of the season. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true, it is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.